An empath is not just someone who is kind, helpful, or highly sensitive to the world around them. It goes much deeper than that. Being an empath means you operate like a walking, talking sponge for human emotion, constantly absorbing the moods, anxieties, and hidden tensions of every single person you cross paths with. The real danger is that you completely lack an emotional filter, making it almost impossible to differentiate where another person's pain ends and your own feelings begin. You don't just notice that someone is angry or hurting, you physically and psychologically take that energy into your own body, experiencing it as if it belongs to you. This rare and exhausting way of living isn't something that just happens by accident, and you certainly didn't just wake up one day with this condition. The roots of an empath run incredibly deep, almost always stretching back into early childhood experiences. More often than not, you grew up in a dysfunctional, unstable, or emotionally neglectful home environment, where your own basic emotional needs were completely ignored, minimized, or pushed aside. To survive in that space, you were forced to develop an ultra-sharp, hyper-vigilant awareness of the adults around you. You had to learn how to read the tiniest shifts in the room, the tone of a voice, the heavy sound of a footstep, or a subtle change in body language, just to keep yourself safe and maintain some sense of peace. Because the adults in your life couldn't manage their own lives or emotions, you stepped into a role you were never meant to play. You learned very early on that it was your personal job to fix, save, or heal your parents and protect your siblings from the chaos. You became the emotional caretaker of the household before you even had a chance to figure out who you were as an individual person. This conditioned you to believe that your only true value on this earth comes from what you can do for other people and how much of their suffering you can carry on your own shoulders. Living with this conditioning means that simply walking into a crowded room, a busy office, or a family gathering can feel like an absolute assault on your senses. Because your energy field is completely open, you instantly absorb the heavy, chaotic current of the environment around you the moment you step through the door. You might be having a perfectly fine, peaceful day, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, a wave of intense anxiety, random anger, or crushing depression slams into you. You are left feeling totally confused, exhausted, and upset without having any logical explanation for why your mood shifted, only to realize much later that you just inadvertently picked up on someone else's hidden emotional baggage. This complete lack of protective emotional boundaries doesn't just tire you out in public spaces. It actively traps you in highly toxic, destructive relationships. Because you can literally feel another person's intense attraction, desperation, or emotional need for you, you easily mistake their powerful feelings for your own genuine interest. You get so completely tangled up in their energetic pull that you end up dating, marrying, or staying with people you don't even actually like or respect. You find yourself trapped in these dynamics simply because you felt the heavy weight of their loneliness or desire, and you lack the boundaries or the vocabulary to say no and walk away. Ultimately, your empathy becomes a dangerous trap because you consistently mistake another person's brokenness for your own personal mission. When you look at a highly damaged, toxic, or narcissistic individual, you don't see the red flags or the danger signs that normal people see. Instead, your childhood conditioning kicks in automatically, and you see a wounded soul that just needs enough of your love, patience, and energy to finally be healed. You convince yourself that if you can just absorb enough of their pain and sacrifice enough of your own well-being, you can fix them. This keeps you stuck in an exhausting cycle of giving everything you have to people who will gladly drain you dry, leaving you completely empty while you chase a mission that was never yours to complete. The first major sign that you are a true empath is that you don't just notice emotions, you literally absorb them directly into your own nervous system. You walk around completely exposed to the energetic climate of the people surrounding you, leaving you constantly overwhelmed by their shifting moods. If a coworker walks into the office stressed and irritated, you will feel your own chest tighten and your pulse race, taking on their agitation as if you were the one who had a bad morning. It is an exhausting way to live because your internal peace is entirely dependent on the emotional state of whatever room you happen to be standing in at any given moment. The second sign is your automatic habit of adopting other people's problems and treating them as your own personal responsibilities. When a friend, a partner, or even a casual acquaintance tells you about a crisis they're facing, something flips inside your brain, and you immediately internalize their dilemma. You don't just offer a listening ear or standard advice, you take the problem home with you, losing sleep over how to solve a situation that has absolutely nothing to do with you. You carry the heavy weight of their financial stress, relationship drama, or career struggles on your own shoulders, acting as if you are the one who is personally on the hook to find an immediate solution. The third undeniable sign is that you absolutely cannot say no, finding yourself completely unable to set firm boundaries with anyone you perceive to be hurting or in need. The moment you recognize that someone is in distress, your defense mechanisms vanish, and you will compromise your own schedule, your bank account, and your sanity just to appease them. Even if you are already running on completely empty and desperately need to prioritize yourself, the mere thought of turning away someone who is struggling feels completely impossible. You view your own boundaries not as a healthy form of self-care, but as an act of cruelty, which keeps you permanently trapped in a cycle of overextending yourself for everyone else. The fourth sign that confirms you're an empath is your complete inability to relax, even when you are entirely alone. You might finally get a moment of peace, sitting by yourself in a quiet room, but your mind refuses to switch off because you are wasting all of your mental energy worrying about everyone else's lives. Instead of recharging your battery, you spend your alone time replaying conversations, obsessing over how to fix your friend's mood, or feeling anxious about a family member's future. True isolation and mental rest elude you because your brain remains tightly tethered to the emotional baggage of the people you left behind, turning your personal space into a mental war room. The fifth sign is a deep, agonizing sense of guilt that completely eats you alive if you do not step in to fix a situation or help someone in need. If you attempt to choose yourself for once, or if you simply lack the resources to rescue someone from their own mess, a heavy wave of shame instantly washes over you. You carry a subconscious belief that you are directly responsible for the happiness and well-being of the world around you. So walking away from someone else's pain feels like a moral failure. This toxic guilt acts as a psychological whip, driving you to jump back into the caretaker role over and over again, just to escape the crushing feeling that you are a bad person for having limits. The sixth sign is that your immediate family and closest friends completely drain your life force because you find it nearly impossible to set firm boundaries with the people you love the most. Because these relationships are deep and long-standing, the emotional wires are completely crossed, and you act as the ultimate dumping ground for their complaints, dramas, and expectations. You find yourself walking on absolute eggshells around relatives, constantly adjusting your behavior to keep the peace and prevent any emotional blow-ups. The people who are supposed to represent a safe haven end up being the exact ones who leave you feeling the most depleted, simply because you don't know how to build a wall between your love for them and their chaotic energy. The seventh sign is your ongoing, genuine shock when you realize that the rest of the world does not operate with the same level of empathy that you do. Because your natural default setting is to be considerate, deeply sensitive, and intensely focused on the feelings of others, you mistakenly assume that everyone else possesses that exact same internal compass. When you witness someone act with cold selfishness, casual cruelty, or a complete lack of basic empathy, it doesn't just upset you, it deeply rattles your entire worldview and leaves you utterly confused. You struggle to comprehend how people can navigate life without caring about the emotional wake they leave behind, making you highly vulnerable to being blindsided by manipulative and predatory personalities. The eighth and final sign is your compulsive need to project solutions onto other people's lives, constantly visualizing exactly what they need to do to heal, change, or succeed, and then attempting to do the heavy lifting for them. You possess a unique ability to see the exact root of a person's suffering and the clear path they need to take to fix it. But instead of letting them figure it out on their own, you step in as the uninvited architect of their recovery. You spend immense time, energy, and effort trying to guide, fix, and manage their choices, completely blind to the fact that they might not even want to change. You mistake your desire to control their outcome for love, forcing yourself into the exhausting position of trying to save people who are perfectly comfortable staying exactly where they are. When an open, giving empath enters into a romantic relationship with a narcissist, it creates a perfectly engineered, highly destructive, toxic cycle that is incredibly difficult to break. To understand why this dynamic is so powerful and dangerous, you have to look at the relationship as an energetic transaction between two completely opposite forces. The empath is a radiant beacon of pure, giving energy, someone who possesses an endless supply of love, validation, compassion, and emotional warmth. The narcissist, on the other hand, is an emotional vacuum, a deeply insecure, hollow shell of a person who has absolutely no internal ability to generate their own self-worth or happiness. The narcissist requires an outside source of constant attention, adoration, and control just to feel secure, and they view the empath's massive heart as the ultimate gold mine to exploit. At the very beginning of the relationship, the empath doesn't see the narcissist as a manipulator or a predator. Instead, because of your natural default setting to sense human suffering, you look past their bad behavior and focus entirely on their hidden pain. When the narcissist acts out, becomes distant, or shows flashes of cruelty, your childhood conditioning kicks in automatically, and you treat their toxicity as if it is simply a deep childhood wound that just needs enough love, patience, and understanding to heal. You become the ultimate defense attorney for the very person who is destroying you, constantly making wild excuses for their terrible actions. You tell yourself stories like, they only act this way because their parents didn't love them, or they just don't know what real love looks like, so I have to be the one to show them. You convince yourself that your love is a magical cure, and that if you can just endure enough of their bad behavior, they will eventually transform into the person you know they can be. Meanwhile, the narcissist sees this boundless patience not as a gift, but as a green light to exploit you completely without facing any consequences. They quickly realize that you will swallow your own boundaries to keep them happy, so they begin a systematic campaign to break down your self-esteem and control your mind. They start to casually dismiss your emotions, treating your valid hurt feelings as a minor inconvenience or an insult to them. Whenever you try to speak up, express your pain, or call out their behavior, they immediately turn the tables on you through gaslighting, confidently telling you that you are just being crazy, insecure, or entirely overreacting. They twist reality so effectively that you actually begin to doubt your own sanity, constantly second-guessing your memory of events and wondering if you really are the problem. As the cycle spins deeper, the narcissist makes you feel like you can absolutely never do anything right, moving the goalposts of their approval so that you are always left chasing their validation. If you are happy, they will find a way to ruin your mood. If you accomplish something great, they will minimize it to keep you humble and dependent on them. They use your empathy as a direct weapon against you, intentionally triggering your deep sense of guilt whenever you try to pull away or protect yourself. They ruthlessly drain your light, your confidence, and your vitality, sucking out all of your positive energy to temporarily fill their own bottomless void and regulate their chaotic internal state. They leave you completely empty, isolated from your friends, and walking on permanent eggshells, turning you into a ghost of your former self, while you continue to burn your own life down just to keep them warm. Amazing, almost miraculous things begin to happen when a narcissist finally pushes an empath way too far. For the longest time, you tolerated the lies, accepted the blame, and completely minimized your own suffering just to keep the relationship alive. But every empath has an absolute breaking point, a line in the sand where the emotional abuse, the constant disrespect, and the exhausting gaslighting become too heavy for even your massive heart to carry. When the narcissist crosses that final line, something snaps deep within your soul. Up until this exact moment, you lived under a profound, lifelong illusion that every single person on this planet operates with the same level of empathy, kindness, and basic human decency that you do. You genuinely believe that if you just explained your hurt clearly enough, or showed enough unconditional love, any human being would eventually understand and change. The brutal betrayal of the narcissist forces you to completely shatter that illusion and face a harsh, undeniable reality. True predators actually exist, and some people simply lack a conscience or the basic capacity to care about anyone but themselves. It is a terrifying but necessary awakening to realize that there are individuals who do not want to be saved, do not want to heal, and will gladly look you in the eyes and watch you drown if it benefits them. This massive, world-altering realization triggers a profound spiritual awakening within you. The rose-colored glasses you wore since childhood are ripped off for good, and you stop playing the role of the endless excuse maker for people who treat you like an option. You finally stop saying it's just their childhood trauma, and you start seeing their toxic behavior for exactly what it is: deliberate, malicious exploitation. This awakening completely transforms how you move through the world, forcing you to finally build solid, unbreakable, concrete boundaries. You realize with absolute clarity that boundaries are not selfish acts of cruelty. They are a mechanical necessity for your survival. You understand that your empathy is a rare, high-value frequency, and if you do not actively build a wall to protect your own light, the emotional vampires and predators of the world will ruthlessly drain you until you are completely destroyed. You step out of the fog of confusion, stop begging for basic respect, and realize that your first and most important mission on this earth is not to fix the broken people who hurt you, but to radically protect and preserve your own soul. A healed empath is absolutely not a victim. They are a dangerous, highly formidable match for any manipulator, narcissist, or predator on the face of this earth. When you finally stop looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, you undergo a massive psychological upgrade. You take all of that intense, powerful healing energy, that boundless patience, and that deep emotional investment that you used to waste on toxic people who never deserved it, and you redirect it entirely. you pour it right back into yourself. You stop funding other people's emotional bank accounts while your own is overdrawn, and you start learning how to love yourself radically, fiercely, and unconditionally. You become your own primary assignment, turning your focus inward to rebuild your confidence, repair your nervous system, and reclaim the personal power you gave away for years. By choosing self-preservation over self-sacrifice, you develop an incredibly sharp, razor-focused intuition and a profound, bulletproof sense of wisdom. Because you have survived the worst psychological games a manipulator can play, your mind creates an early warning radar system for toxic behavior. You can spot a predator instantly, reading between the lines of their fake charm, catching their subtle red flags, and recognizing their manipulation tactics the moment they try to deploy them. You no longer ignore that quiet, uneasy feeling in your gut. Instead, you trust your intuition implicitly as an absolute source of truth. The moment someone exhibits a pattern of entitlement, dishonesty, or a lack of accountability, you don't stick around to try and understand them or help them through it. You simply cut off their access to you without a single moment of hesitation. As a warrior in this space, you completely stop caring what other people think about you, which strips bad actors of their primary weapon, toxic guilt. If someone calls you cold, selfish, or unsupportive because you finally refuse to let them dump their chaos into your life, their words simply bounce off you. You accept the hard, liberating truth that you are not on this planet to fix, save, or rehabilitate human beings who have absolutely no genuine desire to fix themselves. You let go of the arrogant illusion that your love can fix someone else's broken character, and you hand people back their own responsibilities. A healed empath steps directly into their true authority, carrying a quiet, lethal confidence that says you will never again burn yourself down just to keep someone else warm. Once you make the conscious, unwavering choice to prioritize self-preservation, a profound shift occurs in your energetic frequency. You become completely immune to negative energy. In the past, you were like a house with all the doors and windows thrown wide open during a storm, letting every piece of emotional debris rush inside and wreck the place. Now, you have built a solid foundation and closed the doors. The negative energy, the complaints, the guilt trips, and the chaotic moods of other people still exist around you, but they can no longer penetrate your skin. They simply hit your energetic boundary and slide right off, leaving you entirely untouched. You stop taking on other people's stress as a personal assignment, realizing that you can witness someone else's storm without allowing yourself to drown in it. This absolute immunity completely changes the dynamic between you and the manipulators of the world, to the point where narcissists will actually begin to fear you. These toxic individuals possess a predatory instinct. They are highly attuned to finding people they can easily control, guilt trip, and drain. When they approach a healed empath, they instantly sense that the old rules don't apply. They can feel the quiet, lethal weight of your boundaries before you even say a word. And they realize you can see right through their cheap games, their false charm, and their sob stories. They recognize that you are tracking their hidden motives in real time. And because a narcissist's greatest terror is being exposed and losing control, they will naturally back away from you. They don't want to tangle with someone who cannot be manipulated by guilt or flattery. So they move on to easier targets, completely intimidated by your clarity. It is crucial to understand that during this transformation, your empathy doesn't die, shrink, or disappear. You do not become a cold, unfeeling, or bitter person. Instead, your beautiful capacity to care deeply simply becomes highly targeted and controlled. You no longer throw your precious emotional gold into the dirt for anyone to trample on. Instead, you lock it in a vault and save it exclusively for people who are accountable, responsible, and genuinely ready to grow. You reserve your deep listening, your advice, and your compassion for individuals who match your energy, respect your boundaries, and take full ownership of their own lives. You become a gatekeeper of your own peace, understanding that true empathy must always be paired with discernment. Otherwise, it is just self-destruction wrapped in a flag of kindness. Ultimately, you reach this state because you successfully traveled through the absolute dark night of the soul. You endured the crushing weight of betrayal, the agonizing pain of losing your identity to a manipulator, and the terrifying process of breaking down your entire worldview to rebuild it from scratch. Through that intense fire, you didn't just survive. You discovered that your empathy, when properly protected, is actually your ultimate superpower. You have earned your wisdom the hard way, and that survival has given you a fierce, protective, maternal instinct over your own soul. You walk through the world with an open but fiercely guarded heart, completely aware of your immense value. And you carry an absolute vow to yourself that you will never, under any circumstances, allow another human being to exploit your sacred heart space ever again. Recognizing yourself as an empath is the first step toward reclaiming a life that actually belongs to you. You were never meant to be an emotional dumpster for the world's unresolved trauma, nor were you born to lose your own identity in the shadow of a narcissist's bottomless demands. The exhausting cycle of carrying everyone else's pain ends the exact moment you decide to turn that massive, unconditional love inward and fight for your own peace of mind. It is time to stop playing the savior, drop the heavy baggage that isn't yours to carry, and finally step into the role of the healed warrior you were always meant to become. Your empathy is a brilliant, life-changing gift, but it is a superpower that must be fiercely guarded with unbreakable boundaries, or it will continue to be used as a tool for your own destruction. If you are ready to stop walking on eggshells and finally break free from the toxic patterns holding you back, take action right now to reclaim your power. Take a moment to evaluate the relationships in your life. Identify the energy vampires draining your light, and make the firm decision to choose yourself today.